In 1952, a factory seamstress in Detroit had not visited a beauty counter in 3 years. She worked the early morning shift 6 days a week and came home to 3 children who needed feeding before she could think about herself. Yet every woman on the factory floor noticed her skin. It was clear. It was tight. It caught the light like a woman half her age. Her entire routine cost less than $2 and lived in a small basket beneath her bathroom sink. Every single ingredient she used is still available today for under $10. And this video will show you exactly where to find all 5 of them. The first ingredient is witch hazel. And poor women in the 1950s understood its power in a way that modern dermatologists are only now beginning to properly document. When a woman in rural Alabama could not afford the $3 department store toner her wealthier neighbors were buying, she reached for the clear bottle of witch hazel at the back of the pharmacy shelf. It cost cents. It was exactly what the expensive product was pretending to be. She soaked a small piece of torn cotton fabric and pressed it across her entire face after washing every single morning. The natural astringent properties tightened her pores, completely eliminated the excess oil that caused painful breakouts, and balanced her skin without stripping away the protective moisture barrier that harsh soaps constantly destroyed. Women who used witch hazel consistently in the 1950s maintained a perfectly smooth, matte complexion that looked expensive and professionally maintained without ever entering a salon. The version I found on iHerb is Thayers Witch Hazel with Aloe Vera. It contains no alcohol, which means it tightens and clarifies without the terrible drying effect that destroys the skin barrier. It costs under $9 and will last you an entire month of daily use. Link number 1 is in the description below. The second ingredient is castor oil. And it is one of the most quietly powerful beauty secrets that working women in the 1950s refused to give up, no matter how tight their budgets became. When a mother in Chicago watched her eyebrows thin and her lashes weaken from years of stress and poor nutrition, she did not visit a salon for a treatment she could not afford. She found a small brown bottle of castor oil at the drugstore for almost nothing, and applied a single drop to her lash lines and brow bones every single night before sleeping. The heavy ricinoleic acid in the oil nourished each follicle from the surface down and prevented every hair from breaking or falling out prematurely. Women who used this ritual consistently maintained the thick, dark brows and heavy lashes of women far younger than themselves. They also used it as a deep overnight treatment for their most damaged and brittle hair ends. A single drop warmed between the palms and combed through the ends before sleep delivered results that no modern split-end treatment has ever properly equaled. The version available on iHerb is Sunny Isle Jamaican Black Castor Oil, which carries the original wood ash formula that 1950s women were unknowingly using a version of. It costs under $8. Link number 2 is in the description below. The third ingredient is rosewater and glycerin, and this combination was the hidden foundation of every post-war beauty routine that produced flawless, ageless skin. In 1955, a seamstress in New York City who had immigrated from Eastern Europe brought one beauty habit with her that her American co-workers could not understand. Every morning after washing her face with plain cold water, she reached for a small glass bottle and misted her skin before applying anything else. The bottle contained rosewater and glycerin, 2 ingredients that had been used by women across the world for 200 years. The glycerin pulled moisture from the surrounding air and held it directly against the skin surface. The rosewater calmed every trace of redness and inflammation that stress and poor sleep had left behind. Her skin stayed hydrated through the coldest winter months and the driest factory air, without a single drop of the expensive moisturizers her co-workers were spending half their lunch money on. Heritage store rosewater and glycerin makes the exact formula that women were using in the 1950s. It is available on iHerb for under $9. Link number 3 is in the description below. The fourth ingredient is apple cider vinegar. And its uses in a 1950s household went far beyond the kitchen in ways that most modern women have completely forgotten. A woman in rural Georgia in 1957 had hair that her neighbors described as impossibly shiny for someone who washed it with the same cheap soap she used for her laundry. Her secret was the final rinse. After washing, she poured a cup of apple cider vinegar diluted in cold water over her entire head and allowed it to sit for 2 quiet minutes before rinsing it completely away. The strong acid instantly collapsed the raised hair cuticle flat against each shaft, creating a surface so smooth and so uniform that it reflected light like dark glass. It completely stripped the dull residue that cheap soap left behind. Her hair dried with a mirror-like gloss that no commercial product in the 1950s could replicate. Women also applied it diluted as a skin toner to balance the pH of their complexions after washing. The same properties that polished their hair also tightened their pores and corrected the dullness that inadequate nutrition left behind. Bragg Organic Apple Cider Vinegar is the version on iHerb that I recommend. It carries the mother culture that gives it its full biological activity. It costs under $6. Link number 4 is in the description below. The fifth and final ingredient is Arrowroot Powder, and this one performed 3 entirely separate functions in the beauty routine of a truly resourceful woman of the 1950s. When a mother in Mississippi could not afford the 10-cent talcum powder at the pharmacy, she reached for the bag of arrowroot starch in her kitchen cabinet. She dusted it lightly over her face as a setting powder that absorbed every trace of oil and left a perfectly matte porcelain finish that lasted all day in the summer heat. She also worked it into her roots on days when washing was not possible, lifting the oil and leaving her hair looking freshly washed without a single drop of water. And on dry winter days, she patted it onto the areas of her skin that chafed from long hours of physical labor, creating a soft, silky barrier that protected and soothed simultaneously. One single bag did the work of 3 separate products that her wealthy neighbors were paying department store prices for. Bob's Red Mill Arrowroot Starch is available on iHerb for under $6. It is the cleanest version I have found, pure, additive-free, and exactly what those resourceful women of the 1950s were using. Link number 5 is in the description below. Here is something the gigantic modern beauty industry absolutely does not want you to deeply understand or think about clearly today. Every single product in this video costs under $10. The total for all 5 is less than $45. And yet these 5 ingredients deliver results that women in the 1950s depended on every single day of their difficult, underfunded, and incredibly resilient lives. There is no profit margin in a bottle of apple cider vinegar. There is no corporate shareholder value in a bag of arrowroot powder. That is precisely and entirely why these ingredients have been deliberately forgotten by an industry that built itself on convincing you that your beauty requires complex, expensive, professionally formulated chemical intervention. The women who used these exact ingredients in the 1950s did not have the luxury of doubt. They needed results, and they needed them for almost nothing. And they got them, consistently, for decades. By returning to these 5 ingredients, you are not choosing the budget option. You are choosing the original option, the one that worked before corporations decided simplicity was not profitable enough to sell. Here is my personal and highly direct challenge to you for this week. Pick one of these 5 ingredients and use it exactly as the women of the 1950s did. Apply the witch hazel on cotton after your morning wash. Add a single drop of castor oil to your brow bones before sleeping. Pour the apple cider vinegar rinse over your hair after washing. Then look directly into the mirror and realize that the most effective beauty routine available to you costs less than your morning coffee. Share which of these 5 ingredients you are going to try first in the comments directly below. I truly want to know if the castor oil gets more love than the rosewater, because these are not just affordable alternatives, they are the original recipes. and they have never stopped working.